tonight's program, we go in-depth about KDF mission creation. And I think we kind of run into the exact same problem that Cryptic has, is that there is a low player base over there. I get made fun of for my literary choices. When I say I read the William Shatner books, people usually just laugh at me. Yeah, just like that. And canon characters. Should you use them?
I love it when it can be done without breaking the EULA.
Join us on this episode of the Foundry Roundtable. Hello and welcome to episode 6 of the Foundry Roundtable, the podcast exclusively covering the Foundry for Star Trek Online. I am your tame Foundry author, Drogan1701. With me is Hippiejohn, who knows what you did last summer.
Yes, I do, and you should be ashamed.
Greendragoon, who knows who Benedict Cumberbatch is playing in Star Trek and is just playing dumb.
Yeah, I'm not telling you.
Jerk. With us tonight is one of the people who you might call one of the founding Foundry authors, Duke of Rock.
Greetings, everyone.
And I have to start by saying tonight that I was actually for once incorrect in my patch prediction. I kind of assumed last week that the new TOS assets would be patched to holodeck that Thursday, but no dice. So I guess maybe this week.
We hope.
Who knows? But we're going to get right into it. So let's start with Dragoon. What are you working on? Well,
it's been an interesting week. I mean, I haven't had a lot of time in the Foundry, but I've managed to get a lot of little things done. First off, if you remember from last week, I was complaining about the trouble I was having copying over my custom map after I found out the map I was using for a base didn't have any pathing data.
That's giving me LPS interior, right?
Yeah. I ended up trying to copy it over, and every time I would try to preview the map after it had been copied, the Foundry would just disconnect, shut down, and kick me back to the login screen. I finally figured out what was going on, and it is probably one of the wildest bugs I've ever seen. Basically, what was happening is I have like one or two objects in the map that have default dialog boxes. And when I copied that over, somehow every single object in this almost like 500 object map got default dialog boxes that were just duplicate versions of those one or two. And so I go to...
I have heard of that happening, but not in a long time.
Yeah,
remember it happening with, like, Bazag, maybe?
That happened to me with my Foundry Spotlight, Foundry Challenge entry with Spectres. There's one place where I use I used Drazana Station twice, and I had the same NPCs. I just needed to change their animations, and so I just copied the map, and I had like 4 or 5 items and a couple of NPCs on the map that had, you know, what you were saying, the default dialogues. And when I copied the map, everything that I had placed on the map came up with default dialogues.
Yeah, well, in my case...
And all of them.
pretty much causing the preview mode to gum up or crash or something.
I didn't have 500 items.
Yeah,
so.
Well, yeah. It's a map that's scraping in under the object limit.
Well, I think the other thing is it's not just like one default dialogue copies onto the items either. At least the experience I had was that every single item on the map picked up every single default dialogue that I had put onto the map. So I had to delete like 10 default dialogues from every single item.
That might explain what's happening on one of my newer missions.
Yeah, I'm definitely going to report it on the bug forums when I get a chance. Yeah. I want to make sure I can
I'm not sure if anyone has reported that since Frost started posting down there.
Yeah, it's on my list. I just haven't had a chance.
Yeah, I didn't report it on the forums, but I did report it in-game.
The other thing I managed to do is I might have come up with a way to at least make it appear that an NPC is beaming up. And it basically revolves around finding out I could create invisible NPCs. And basically the way I did that was if you try to import a costume for, say, like a SAR or another animal, it'll either crash the Foundry or it'll produce a NPC costume with no geometry, which is perfect because there's nothing to see. So what I would do is I would phase out one NPC, at the same time phase in this invisible NPC who would have a beam animation, and that would make it appear that the NPC was beaming out. And then you just get rid of the invisible NPC with another trigger or something else down the road.
Now, I have to say, you posted this on the forums, and I tested it, and it worked perfectly.
It's got a couple of quirks to it. I mean, the fact that you have this invisible NPC there that is still selectable. But in a pinch, I mean, it's definitely an option worth trying out.
That's more than just in a pinch. I mean, that's a way to make it look like what you want it to do. It's really brilliant.
This also helps out with things like dialogue boxes that you want empty.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah. It would, wouldn't it?
So, unfortunately, this is totally all based on a bug, but at the moment, it's a bug you can use.
The only thing I don't like about it there is that what you said at the beginning, it'll either crash the Foundry or create the node geometry.
Of course, here's the question is, we probably ought to try this and publish a mission and see if it still works.
That's true. I did not test this in a live environment.
Yeah. All right, well, Duke, have you been working in the Foundry lately?
Yeah, actually I have been. Just been building maps and working on a story for Medusa's Revenge, actually.
Is that going to be like a continuation of...
It's only going to be a one episode, but I've had a lot of people that were kind of wanting to see if it was going to go further, and I kind of left an opening in my final episode to where it could. So I'm kind of been working on that, kind of grinding away and enjoying it again. You know, it takes, once you get motivated and you get in there and you start building on your map, you know how it is. You try to find something else neat you can do different. And
Yay, Mark's here.
Markhawkman is joining us. Mark, we went ahead and started, and we are in the what are you working on phase, so we'll go right to you. What have you been working on?
Not that much in terms of creating things. I'm still going and playing through all of the challenge entries for the current challenge.
Yeah, it can take a lot of time.
Yeah, especially considering how many entries there are for this challenge.
All right, well, Hippie, what have you been working on?
Yeah, I promised I wouldn't say so much, but you asked me what I'm working on, and that's really the only answer I have at the moment. I did not get the SDO Foundry open nearly at all this week. Is my answer, because I did nothing in the Foundry actually with the editor. All I actually did was write, and I have a really beautiful last scene. That's about it.
It's just getting there, that's the trouble.
Writing is technically a step in Foundry authoring.
It is very much a step in Foundry authoring. I just feel when I haven't actually opened up the editor and played with a map or made a new costume or did something. Although the writing of the thing does bring up something that came up for me this week, which was I was planning on using in this series a race that appeared in the New Frontiers novels written by Peter David, and I was told, or rather advised, that might not be a good idea, even though my assumption was we've got one of the characters in the game. We've got Captain Mackenzie Calhoun as one of the Federation side PvP contacts, and he was the captain of the novels that Peter David wrote. I thought, sure, go ahead and use the race that he created. Unfortunately, STO probably doesn't have rights to use the race that was created there, and so I had to rewrite a pretty significant part of what I was doing, but it led me, down the road of, that end-user license agreement is a really, really interesting thing because it does lay out exactly what we can use, and the novels are not in there. So,
yeah.
As I understand it, I think they negotiated like a special deal to be able to use that character.
Probably.
And it probably only covers that character.
Well, which character was that again?
Captain Mackenzie Calhoun. He's the PvP contact, one of the two of them that you pick up at
K7.
4th or 5th level. Yeah, on K7.
I think that they probably negotiated a deal to use things from certain specific books or groups of books, because Calhoun isn't the only thing from the novel that has appeared in the game.
That's very true.
Yeah, but they probably have to go and negotiate with like Random House or whoever the publisher is.
I would imagine.
I would assume.
They're then not dealing with CBS, so they're dealing with a whole other set of people who have rights.
I mean, look how much trouble it was just to get the vest in.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
That's another example of one thing from the books, I think. That's in the books, right?
I'm honestly not
Yeah.
sure where the Vesta came from, to be honest.
Yeah.
Vesta came from which series of books? I feel terrible that I don't know off the top of my head, but that's okay. I can feel terrible for a minute.
I haven't read the books, but I
trilogy-
should know the
it's a
title.
trilogy
Expert
of
on the
books.
by any means.
I can't claim to have read more than a handful of the books.
When I say I read the William Shatner books, people usually just laugh at me. Yeah, just like that.
Like that.
We're laughing with you.
I have read a few of the Shatner books. I will admit it.
I enjoyed the first couple, the rest were
After the fourth or fifth resurrection of James T. Kirk, it was a little much.
The other one I can remember off the top of my head was one where he more or less states that Spock got assimilated to the Borg Collective by mind melding with. That's the only one I can think of off the top of my head.
Yeah, the Return was the name of it.
Yeah, Shatner's interesting as a writer. That's the best I can say.
Oh, and by the way, it was the Destiny novels. The
That's
best came from the Destiny novels.
see, you're the man on the computer at the moment.
I haven't read the books. Yeah, I just looked it up.
Yeah. Well, I have to confess that I have not been in the editor much this week either. But I have been sort of plotting things out. Like, I had to do it on paper for this because I'm sort of stealing my own idea from the last podcast that I was suggesting to the author's name was DJF021 or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
As a way to sort of specialize based on the player's class, that you have them tell you what class they are early on in the map, in a map dialogue, and then based on their dialogue choice, you can spawn different things further on in the map for them to do. But it's going to be a bit complicated with triggers and everything, so I wanted to map it out on paper first so that I have just a cheat sheet when I'm actually in the Foundry.
Right.
But I think it's going to be cool because part of the plot, and this is for my initial first series that I'm revising now, part of the plot was that your ship gets disabled, you go to engineering to help out and find out what's going on because internal communications are down. And along the way, currently as it is, along the way you encounter a few things that you have to help repair. An NPC stops you and says, "Sir, can you hit that console over there for me?" Things like that. Well, I want to do it so that, if you're if you consider yourself a medical officer, that you have some injured crewmen to take care of. If you consider yourself an engineer, you have some things to fix. If you consider yourself a tactical officer, I'm going to do things like, there's some, like a stack of torpedoes and one of them accidentally got sent to overload or something like that. I haven't figured out exactly what to do with the tactical yet, so I'm working on that. But I think it's going to be cool, and I think it's going to be, it's similar to what Cryptic has done in several missions.
Right.
I just really wish that you could set different colors in the buttons, in the dialogue buttons.
Yeah, that would be nice.
The other thing I've been doing actually came out of a Twitter conversation between you and me, Greendragoon. We were talking about, it was one of those random stream of consciousness conversations, and it came around to, how cool would it be to include the character of Major Recall? Now, Major Recall is the person that is Romulan, that Counselor Troy took the place of in the episode Face of the Enemy.
Oh, yeah.
That's an interesting one because the real Major Recall, if there ever was a real Major Recall, never showed up in the episode at all.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. Now, I think there's some dialogue that says something like, implying that she was eliminated. And I thought, well, what if, these guys are, they're Spock's unification guys, they're kind of amateurs at this sort of thing. Maybe they botched the job and she didn't really die. She's been laying low all this time. And now she's back and wreaking havoc or something like that. I'm in the very early stages of that. And doing some scripting, doing some background, figuring, how she got up to our present day. And you're right, she wasn't portrayed by any actor, so it's a canon character that I can make look like whoever I want.
Yeah, I was going to say, you should be able to use
it. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think it'd be assumed that she has the general appearance of Deanna Troy, but probably not exact.
Mm-hmm. All right, moving on to what have we played this week. Hippie, let's start with you.
I kind of focused on the KDF this week because that's both what I want to talk about, and I said, what the hell? I'll go play a whole bunch of different KDF missions, and I found one. Hey, I searched and searched and searched and looked for one that seemed to be based on story that had less than 5 plays, or in the case of the one that I did manage to find, had exactly 5 plays. It was called In Name Only by GaryGnu.
Like the title.
I just reading the author's name. I had to, before I played the mission, I had to stop and just get the Great Space Coaster out of my head, and it was a really good mission. I don't want to say too much about it. I don't want to spoil it for people. It's a really good touchstone mission. The author is very clear about it right up front. When you bring up the journal and look at the mission and look at the mission that you're about to take, he even tells you the episode that he's referencing, that he's using, and it's one of those uses of a canon character that's pretty cool, that doesn't have a likeness violation, and the story is very good. It's very well done. He presents a lot of interesting choices for you to make, even though it's one of those problems with the Foundry. You can present the 3 different choices of tactical, engineering, science. It's not really going to make a difference because that's just
kind
the
of
way
you do that in small doses.
Right, you can. So since it's not really, he presents some really interesting choices that, even though as a Foundry author, I know that the storyboard, no matter which way I go down these dialogues, I'm going to land in a spot at the end. He makes it really interesting. He makes it really fun, and it's definitely one of my favorite missions that I've played. All I can say is I don't want to say too much about it. How's this? The mission giver is Worf, and it's a very Worf-centric story that does some great touchstoning on what I consider to be a great character. Before I played it, all 5 reviews that it had were 5 stars. I felt bad about giving the thing 4 stars. Go play it.
Well, Worf is one of those easy ones because, of course, Old Man Worf is already in the Foundry as contact we can use.
And
it looks nothing like Michael Dorn.
The canon character I'm talking about isn't Old Worf. So that's the great thing. Yes, awesome. Old Worf is there. He's someone we can use. He's a contact on a cryptic social map that you can just set as someone for the player to go talk to. And he is used. He's the one who explains your mission and gives you your mission. The canon character is not Worf, and it's a really very cool character. So,
but you don't want to spoil it.
I don't want to spoil it. I want people to go play it. They should go play it. Yeah. It's called In Name Only, and like I said, the guy's name is GaryGnu. I had to get over the fact that his name was GaryGnu because it just made me think of the Great Space Coaster. So,
all right, Markhawkman, what have you been playing?
Other than the Foundry Challenge missions, I played a KDF mission called Never Count the Gorn Out by Maziken. He still only has 4 plays on that one, so, It was a very good mission, too. And it was kind of bummed to see that so few people had played it. The basic gist of it, you need to help a group of Gorn who are being used for slave labor. And beyond that, that's not really... Well, the enemy in the mission is the Federation, though, which is kind of odd, but it works okay.
I noted, I definitely noticed that one. The reason that I didn't play it was it noted that it was the 3rd in a series, and I want to play the other 2 first.
Yeah, I didn't notice anything while playing it that made me wonder what the previous 2 episodes were. So,
There's definitely some series out there that sort of, each one kind of stands on its own.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Anyway, this one, he did a whole lot of really cool things with the Foundry editor, and I have to say, it was a lot of fun, and it's just one of those things where playing through it, you realize just how many cool tricks you can actually do with map design.
Yeah, I think I read you. You wrote something about it on the in the forums. I think complimenting them on it. If I remember reading it today, yeah. And that kind of made me curious about it. Wanting to go play it.
Well, Duke, have you been playing any Foundry missions lately?
Yeah, I mean, I've been doing the challenges. Been playing the different Tholian ones, basically.
What do you think so far?
I've enjoyed some of them. I haven't got to all of them. There's so many of them this month, or this particular batch of them anyway. But I'm enjoying them. I mean, they all seem to be a little bit different than, there's no real common theme from what I've found, at least on the ones that I've played. I played about 5 of them. But, I mean, I've enjoyed it.
Is that what the rest of you guys think?
Something new to explore,
I know Hippie and Mark, you've been playing them. Is that kind of your experience as well?
Yep. I think it's the nature of the challenge, because all you guys were given was make it about Tholians.
Yep.
So
that's pretty big, yeah.
So some of them are done by people who, when you play the mission, you can easily tell that the person who made the mission had never actually published anything before, because just certain things about it were extremely awkward.
Yeah, I noticed that with a couple of them.
Like
you can usually tell.
One of the KDF challenge missions, it forces you to run around on New Romulus to go from entry door to entry door on New Romulus, which the ones that he picked for this were not close together. And that made the mission take a lot longer than it would have otherwise.
That's an interesting thing that I had never. I mean, I guess I do think about where the doors and where things that you use on a map are, but I haven't used New Romulus. I guess it might be a kind of a difficult thing.
Well, the basic idea he used was actually not that bad. It's just that the way he used it made it come out rather badly.
Was it New Romulus gives the transport zones all over New Romulus where you can just step on a transporter pad and be somewhere else. Did his mission maybe account for that?
If you've done the mission to turn on the transporters already. If you haven't, no. And of course there's the fact that some of the location shows aren't actually all that close to a transporter pad. Anyway,
something to think about when you're doing stuff with a social map is, how far will people have to run?
Especially if it's point to point like that.
Because New Romulus is a big map. All right, Dragoon, what have you been playing?
I actually played another, at the time, only had 4 stars. Mine put it over the 5 limit, called Torg's Treason by Uncle to Fire. And this is one I actually found on the forums. He had posted in the forums requesting that people give it a play. Yep. And I would classify it as, and this is his first mission, and it was a decent first attempt at a mission. The basic plot involves you're sent to look into this research station near the neutral zone that's stopped transmitting. And you get there and you find that Romulans have basically taken over the station and are using it to hack Memory Alpha. And you're a little bit confused as to why. Basically, the rest of the mission is kind of backtracing the signal relay system that they've set up and to find who ultimately is behind this. And I don't want to give too much away. It's a mission that has a solid framework to it, but it could use some meat on the bones, so to speak. The custom space maps weren't too bad, but it was very simple maps. There was almost, I would say, too little dialogue. I mean, so oftentimes you would get just a very brief description, if anything at all, just very simple commands. Go here. The so-and-so are doing something, this thing did something. What technobabble he had in there was actually reasonably good. I mean, so it's pretty clear he has some idea of what he's talking about. The battles, there was plenty of assortments of both space and ground, a little more space. There's like only 1 ground map, and this is really only a 4-map mission. Were rather easy. I mean, I think the majority of the encounters were like lieutenant and below, and there was a couple of battles that I got attacked by what looked like a lone bird of prey. And I don't know if he was reskinning cruisers or if he literally went to the trouble of separating out a bird of prey from its groups, but they went down pretty easily. So overall, I think this mission could be greatly improved if he was to go in and really beef up some of the dialogue, build up the suspense for the plot a little more, and beef up the encounters a fair amount.
Yeah, I'll agree with you on that. I played that too. I think I was the first one to play it when I saw his post on there. And I sent him a private message too, telling him what he could do to help beef it up, and and it was a good, solid attempt at a first mission, no doubt.
Yeah, and I mean in his forum post he was saying I'd love some advice and all that stuff, and in my review that hey, I took notes. If you're interested, I will be happy to send him along. And he actually did get back to me, and I haven't had a chance to actually reply to him yet. Basically say, hey, yeah, send me your advice and whatnot. So it's clear he's new at the Foundry. He's got a good start there. And I think if he works at it and practices it, I mean, he could be a very good Foundry author.
Cool.
There's always some things that I kind of look for in a new author, and it's, first of all, does everything work? Did he put out the objectives like they should? Do all the triggers work? Are there any things that they didn't get to, things that were left blank that should be filled in? Does the plot at least make sense? It could be basic, but does it make sense? Does it go from A to B to C, just like that? Are the NPCs named?
Yeah, he definitely hits the basics down fairly well. And I will say it actually has a nice tie-in with one of the Klingon arcs, which is kind of interesting considering this is a Federation mission. But I mean, it's done in such a way that if you haven't played the KDF side, you're not at a disadvantage.
That's good. Well, like you guys, I also went and played a KDF mission. Went and searched in the under 5 and didn't find anything that struck my fancy. So I looked for sort of, one that had low numbers of reviews, and I think I found one that it was around 50-ish. It's called Damocles Mirror by DangerOne, which involves you going to investigate some strange readings around a planet, and you get sent to the mirror universe. And of course, you have to figure out, where am I, and investigate things, and, wondering why you run into some slaves, and you're wondering, why are they slaves? And you have to investigate and figure out that you're in the mirror universe. Once you find out where you are, you by investigating the space station, you have to figure out how to get home, of course. And it was a fairly short mission. One thing that I liked about it is the author was very upfront, and he said, I set my missions in the original series timeline, which I thought was pretty cool.
Awesome.
And had I had some more time, I would have gone back to Kronos and reskinned all my guys with, ridgeless Klingons and in TOS uniforms, and, pulled my D7 out of mothballs just for some RP,
Uh-huh.
And he's got some more missions, and I think I might do that for his other missions.
Cool.
It was a real nice little mission, and I was going to bring up the issue of map transfers, because he has a lot of map transfers for things I think could be done all on the same map. Because it's mostly investigating the space station, and he takes about 3 maps to do it, when I think it could be accomplished on one. All the exposition could be put in one map, all of the interacting could be put in one map. Even the combat could be put in one map, because, of course you can go back over areas of a map and spawn new mobs, things like that. You can say, oh, they've sent reinforcements to this deck, things like that. And that eliminates map transfers, because, as we all know, that map transfers in the Foundry take a little while.
They do. They take a long time.
It's kind of an annoyance, and, I kind of was hoping that one of these days maybe Cryptic would work on that. But maybe it's something they can't change. I don't know. I'd be curious to know how that goes in Neverwinter, if it's going to be the same way. But I don't know.
So, talking about map transfers, I played Dragoon's mission again this week.
Which has a lot of map transfers.
But you did something with the mission that the place that I've been seeing map transfers be a problem for people, both in missions that I've been playing and in my own mind trying to figure out how to do them, is I want the story to flow. I want it, when I beam up from a planet, I want the player to suddenly be on their ship and then warp out to go to the next place. That idea that you use of making the space map big enough that when you warp away from the place, you go through a warp corridor using the moving stars and everything else to just put you at another place on the map, which really worked well.
Yeah, that's something that a lot of us are doing, and especially like Ceridium has been doing that a lot. Ceridium has inspired me to try something where you have several star systems within the same space map, where it starts off being just completely blank. It tells you, go to this spot and warp, and drop out a warp in this system. It essentially makes it like sector space.
Yeah.
Drop out a warp in this system, hit an interact, and it spawns, some nebula as a planet, space station, things like that. And then once you're ready to warp out, it despawns all that. You go to the next one.
Oh,
And I think it's really
I
cool
had
to do.
not even thought of, hidden interact when you hit the system and it spawns everything around you.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
That's really cool.
Play my mission, Sink the Bismarck.
Yeah,
Okay.
I've seen a few that do that. You activate the warp trail, the entire solar system disappears, and then you exit the warp trail, and a completely different solar system suddenly reappears.
Yeah,
It's
so
not
ways
okay.
to get rid of those map transfers, but still have all of the plot and all of the stuff that you want to do in there.
Right.
I have seen a few occasions where they didn't work out so well because of, with the warp trails, you have to be very cognizant of the fact that people aren't necessarily going to be at the right altitude. And I remember one mission I played a while back that had like 4 of them on the same map, and it got really annoying trying to figure out what altitude I needed to go to for the warp transfers constantly.
Mm.
I think you can get around that by,
the
thing to start it, if you use a small invisible object and have that be the thing that starts it.
Yeah, if you use an invisible object instead of a reach marker,
Yeah,
you
reach
can
marker,
simply
bad.
push, and it'll tell you whether you're too far up or too far down. And that was actually most of the issue that I had, is that there was no way that the game would show me whether it was too far up or too far down. I'd have to resort to spiraling it up and down to find it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've actually stopped using reach markers in space for that very reason.
Yeah.
Something I will do is put one of those flashing beacons. I won't even necessarily give it any geometry, just some kind of indicator of where they're supposed to go.
Yeah, the blinking lights are used, stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. The other thing I wanted to mention just briefly about this mission by DangerOne is it had one of my absolute favorite lines of dialogue I've encountered in the Foundry. On the mirror side, you fight a Terran captain and destroy a ship, and then you come back to your universe and you get attacked by a Federation ship who has his mirror counterpart on it, or his Prime Universe counterpart on it. You fight him, you beat him, and your line of dialogue is, "How many times must I kill this man?" That is an
awesome.
absolute perfect line for it. It's just great.
Every
I like
once in a
that.
rare while, I'll run across a mission that manages to, I will be thinking something, and then it'll appear in the button.
All right. So we last time Hippiejohn's idea for this podcast was to talk about KDF missions. So why don't we start there?
I think we've already been talking about KDF missions.
Well, you
It
had brought
seems
up
like
the
they all
subject.
Anything particular in mind as an issue?
I guess it's the number of plays. Making a Foundry mission takes a lot of work. And I've only made what, to my mind now, seems like a very simple one with what I'm working on. And I know what kind of work goes into some of the missions that just taking a look at what people have done makes me go, only 22 people have played this, or only 40 people have played this. And I know how much time that someone spent making the mission when I play through it, when I look at it. And a lot of them are that way. Also, the KDF mission list is just the overpopulated and overburdened with you think the Federation side missions, there's a lot of grinders and exploity type missions. The KDF side is just ridiculous. That's all there is. It's like the top of the list is just full of them, and story missions that are getting very fair reviews. People saying, hey, this was worth 4 stars, or hey, this had a few technical problems. I'm going to give it 3 stars, but if I play it again and these are fixed, I'd give it more. And that kind of thing. People that are getting very fair reviews so that their missions end up 4 stars or 3.8 or something like that, end up being buried underneath 24 BOF grinders that have whatever. It's very disheartening. And after exploring the KDF side this week, does not reassure me that I want to make KDF missions, because like nothing else, there's a need for content there, but it's just there's so few plays, and it's really disheartening what I see when I look at the KDF mission list, and I spent this week playing some.
I think all of the numbers support that, because I know if you get a spotlight mission and take a spotlight for a KDF mission versus spotlight for a Federation mission, the Federation mission will get 2,000 plays during that 1 week period where it's the spotlight. Mm-hmm. I know from my own experience that my KDF spotlight got about 300 plays, which I considered great for the KDF side, because, and I think we kind of run into the exact same problem that Cryptic has, is that there is a low player base over there. And it's almost hard to justify making the missions for that low player base, because you want people to play your work, and if all the players are over on the Fed side, that's where you're going to put in the work.
So I think we're different, that we have the ability to look at it differently than Cryptic, though.
Yeah.
We're volunteering our time to just create something because of the love of creating it. And there'll be people that say, well, if one person plays it and enjoys it, well, then that's enough. Well, that was 80 hours of my life that I could have spent, writing something for work, or it's a hard payoff when there's no actual gain involved other than the joy of writing. And trust me, I love writing. But on Cryptic's side, if they're producing KDF content, they're producing content that can potentially appeal to more paying players. I know if there were more KDF content for me to play, they would get more money from me.
I think one thing to keep in mind on their side is that I don't think that even if they did a completely fleshed out KDF faction, the KDF is never going to be as big as the Federation, just because they were never the center of the show. That said, don't misquote me here and say that I'm saying KDF shouldn't be fleshed out. I think they should, just for the completeness of the game.
I think in the long term they're going to be.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully.
Well, before the show I told you I had a little story about KDF missions. Mm-hmm. And here it is. So when Brand Flakes told me I had been spotlighted, or I was going to be spotlighted, he said, you gotta, you're going to be up in 2 weeks, make any changes you want and that sort of thing. And so I did. And I had actually been working on a little series of KDF missions, slowly had been working on them, because I wanted to release all 3 at once, even though it's sort of a series, but you don't have to play them in any order. The premise being you go into the holodeck and run a holodeck program for fun, taking the place of the 3 Klingon characters from the original series in 3 of their famous battles. Of course, Kang, Gorn, Koloth. So once he told me I'd been spotlighted, I got the brilliant idea. It's like, okay, you know what? My name and my mission are going to be up there in the news section of the forums and everything, and over in the on the main site. So why don't I get these 3 missions done, release them on the same day, announce it in those threads, and I'll get a whole ton of plays. Brilliant idea. Didn't work at all. I have to this day a little over 30 plays on one of them and a little over 20 plays on the other 2.
Wow.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. It just, I guess, didn't appeal to people or what. Who knows?
Well, I think just like I say, the amount of people don't play. Just there's not nearly the amount of people focused on the Klingon.
Yeah, and it's sort of a catch-22.
Yeah.
If there was more content over there, more people would be playing it.
Mm-hmm.
But
I did notice that, and your experience isn't one that I saw while I was looking through the list. I noticed that there were very few that were languishing. Of course, I have no concept of how long those missions have been up there.
Yeah, there's no way to know.
There's no way
unless
to
you
know.
talk to the author.
So to my uninformed viewing of how long they had been there were very few that had very little plays. Most of them had at least 50.
Well, they're lucky.
Yeah. That doesn't reassure me. I'll say that.
I don't know, but to my mind, that's not going to necessarily stop me from making more KDF missions. In fact, I'm working on one right now to release with my big series. That's a follow-up. So I mean, I'm still going to do it because I like writing for Klingons. I've always liked the Klingons. There's so much more fun than the Federation sometimes. Federation can be real sticks in the mud, you know.
Well, I have a real idea for a Klingon mission. I'll say this. If you liked the whole Captain Kirk and his crew stop the assassination with Christopher Plummer being a Klingon who quotes Shakespeare at them and has a ship that suddenly has the ability to fire while cloaked, all of that, take that and make the hero a Klingon crew. This is the idea that I have for a Klingon mission, and it completely STO background timeline. It's what I want to do. It just feels like it's going to be a lot of work. And I don't know how many people are going to play it. What, 10?
Well, I'll play it for sure because I absolutely love Star Trek.
That sounds interesting.
So, yeah. Well, I'll tell you what. The thing that I was going to bring up tonight is something we already covered a little bit. Is what do you guys think of the use of canon characters in Foundry missions?
I love it when it can be done without breaking the EULA.
Great thing. Tread carefully.
Yes, because of course we all follow the rules here.
Yeah,
Hey,
the way I usually go about that is just talk about them and not really try to show them, because most of them, from the standpoint of Star Trek Online, would be historical figures anyway.
Yeah,
Quite a lot of them.
Most.
They're dead by the time that we're playing.
Yeah.
And I know because I've used canon characters several times. One of them was just recently in my contest mission, where I don't really come out and say if it is or not. I have somebody speculate that it is, and kind of leave it up to the interpretation of the player. But I made sure that the NPC in question does not look anything like the actor.
I have the son of a canon character in my mission.
I do as well.
I've seen a lot of that. The
Yeah,
son
that's
or
an
daughter.
easy choice because,
Yeah.
I mean, just had 30 years have passed.
Which one did you use?
Mine is the son of what would have been Commander Harkins, who was Reginald Barclay's superior on the Midas Array project.
Oh, cool.
Oh, I think I remember that.
Wesley Crusher's son.
Wesley Crusher's son. That's an interesting
Wesley
choice.
Crusher found the girl.
He's a doctor. Yeah, he found it.
Was it Leffler?
Yeah, Robin Leffler was a very interesting character, and like Sonia Gomez, she was one of those characters that I was wishing would show up in more than just one or two episodes.
She had a sort of interesting, quirky quality that you don't get from a whole lot of other Star Trek characters. And she seems to have something of a following on Twitter among the people that I speak to on Twitter.
Yeah, that's right. I saw on a Twitter account that quotes Leffler rules.
Leffler's Laws.
Leffler's Laws. And the fact she was played by Ashley Judd doesn't hurt at all.
Oh, I just thought of this. Sonia Gomez is the Felicia Day of TNG.
I like that. That's good.
Speaking of TNG, just from my aspect, we're down here in Jacksonville, Florida, down in Orlando this weekend at MegaCon. And,
cool.
It's the 25th anniversary of TNG this year, obviously. The whole crew from TNG is going to be...
You going?
I'm going, yes.
Awesome.
I'm kind of excited. I was in Vegas, and of course Patrick Stewart wasn't in Vegas, but he's going to be down there in Orlando as well as all the rest of the crew. So I'm kind of excited about it. It's going to be fun.
Yeah, see, I've always wanted to go to one of these things and wear a shirt or something that says Foundry Author and see if anybody says anything.
I'm sure someone would at least ask you what it was.
Probably. And if there were any STO players there, they'd probably talk to you.
Yeah, they probably come up to me and say, hey, did you make a grinder or something, man? I want to play it.
I want to steal your idea.
How much loot do I get?
I actually, honestly, grinders I don't mind. Exploits, I mind.
Yeah, I agree.
I think
you know what? A grinder mission, there's a place for them. Hell, if I could find one that let me kill 1,000 Mirror Universe ground troops in one go, I would do it. Because I really want that Evil Twin title, and I hate cryptic missions that let me kill Mirror Universe ground troops.
I'm sure there is one.
There probably is.
Like I say, they're over in the Cardassian section.
Yeah, just the exploits are just irritating, especially when they boggle up the whole top of the list, and it buries a lot of the new authors that are trying to get stuff played, down at the bottom of the list, and the list only goes down so far now. Unless you go to the review.
Combat missions have a place.
Correct.
Things that are made to cheat the system have no place. And I'm glad that Cryptic does something about them when they find them and when they decide that it's time to do something about them. I mean, I've gotten used to, we can't expect them to work on our timetable. They've got shit to do.
Well, yeah, and I think actually STO exploiters are pretty lucky because, I mean, Cryptic does not swing the ban hammer near as much as some other games I've had the experience with. Like
they don't
Arena
get
like
banned.
Crazy. Like
they don't get banned for exploiting, and it takes Cryptic forever to deal with an exploit when it's happening. So if an exploit
they banned a whole bunch of people the first day for exploiting.
Whatever.
That would be a miracle.
It's definitely.
But I still think the grinders and the story missions need a separate search.
That's like a separate section.
That's the one change that I want more than anything in the UI.
You and I both.
One change.
my dream UI would be, you open up the Foundry missions and it gives you a choice of like 2 buttons right off the bat before you even see a mission. It says, combat, story.
Mm-hmm.
Then that takes you to a mission search.
There are people who say, but that would be that would be exploited. People would just list themselves under every tab and whatever.
Unless they're mutually exclusive tags.
Yeah, you can only do one or the other.
I don't even think they need to be one or the other. I don't think they need to be one or the other. I think the initial author can only choose one. Can only choose combat or story. They cannot choose, this is a blend. If it's got a lot of story in it, call it story. Yeah. And then I think that in our ratings, when we're giving it 4 or 5 stars and a little comment, we need to have a box that everyone who plays it decides, is this combat or is it story? And every week, the system counts that up and says, it's combat or it's story. Based on what the community believes, or every 100 plays, or every whatever. So
some of them don't get up to 100 plays. So
exactly, that's why I was like every week. But sometimes the data that makes the decision will not have changed when the number of plays hasn't changed in a week. So.
Well, and that kind of shows sometimes that there's a disconnect between what people say things are and what the metrics actually show.
Like something somebody believes is story, the majority of the community might say, really, this is just combat. So that would shake out, but it gives it, the author gives it a starting point, and then the community susses it out with their vote. That's what I would do. That one. It's what I would do.
All right. Well, Greendragoon, do you have a topic for us today?
Well, something I was thinking about, I wanted to bring up, was the idea of promoting one's Foundry mission. The various techniques and methods one can follow in order to get your mission out of the doldrums, so to speak. Because, I mean, just publishing your mission is not going to be enough to get people to notice it.
Oh, no. Absolutely not.
I'm a big fan of visual things. If you post a lot in the forums, make a banner that's bright and colorful or somehow catches people's attention in a way, use marketing tricks and make a billboard for people to look at that makes them say, I want to play it. That's one.
Do something to catch the eye.
Yeah, that's one thing.
Yeah, I think I'll have to do that next time I do one of the Foundry Challenge things, because simply putting some text in my form signature doesn't seem to do a whole lot.
Yeah, I mean, people are kind
Text-
of conditioned
text
to
doesn't
gloss
do it.
over irrelevant text.
Text
I
doesn't do it.
haven't seen it a lot lately, but people used to make trailers for their Foundry missions, videos.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I know I did.
Trailers don't work for me, actually. I've never once gone and played a Foundry mission because I saw a trailer that said this Foundry mission is cool. I don't know why. I don't know why a simple banner works for me, but a trailer doesn't.
No, that's probably a good example of why you have to sort of, as Nero would say, fire everything. Put your mission out there in as many places, in as many formats as you can possibly
Many
think
different
of.
ways as possible.
Yeah.
Another thing I found is write into some of the Foundry podcasts, get them to review it.
Yeah.
We'll do it.
Yeah, I mean,
We'll talk about submissions.
we take submissions, don't we?
Absolutely.
We'll do it. Sure, we'll do it.
Send it to the
I guess
email
UGC takes
in the file.
Podcast does it. Primetime UGC does it. I'm sure the Foundry Files. If you had a mission that you were like, hey, can you guys? And I'm trying to think of who else. Hey, Catstar Zero.
Yeah, Catstar. Duke
There you
Rock
go.
here does in-depth text reviews on Starbase UGC.
I will put out the comment that if you are like a new author and so you're like doing your first mission, I would get on the forums and first get people to play and give you feedback on your mission before you start really pushing the marketing, so you have a chance to polish it first.
A test version.
Yeah, because I mean, if you get a review, you're basically getting that's your like a big shot. So you want to make sure that your mission is in a good polished position before you do that.
And a
So
lot of
I
us
gotta-
are perfectly willing to, play test a mission for you and not leave a review on it.
So that's what I was going to say. I got to say, I would not post that request on the forums, actually, because the forum, it's a small portion of the STO player base, sure, but it's a portion that if they're like, oh, new mission, let's go check it out, they might not pay attention to, they're just testing this. So instead, find a chat room that go to Starbase UGC and go into the chat room and say,
And see if
hey,
anyone's
is
willing.
there anyone around here who can help me do this without leaving a review? So, because it is possible to publish your mission, someone picks it up, and then you pull it down immediately so that no one else can pick it up, so that only the person who picked it up to review it for you or to give you the ideas and help you through is looking at it. So it just, I wouldn't post that openly in the forums. Too many people read the
PM people or, get fleet mates to do it.
Exactly. Fleet mates
send
are
an email to somebody, tweet, a lot of us are on Twitter.
And that actually brings up another thing is when you are promoting it, Starbase UGC allows authors to sign up and post or make a post about when they publish a mission.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's how I got started.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, myself as well. Yeah, before
So
I
my
started doing reviews.
what's going to have to be my final thought on the matter, because I've got like 4 minutes left before I kind of have to head out. It's Shakespeare, woohoo! I get to go play a dirty priest. My final thought on the another thing that is important when promoting your mission is when you're at the point of saying, "Hey, I can promote this." Be loud about it and be proud of it. Don't be a dick. Don't be annoying about it. Don't come off as an arrogant, I'm better than anyone and I'm the best writer and I know Star Trek and whatever. Don't do that. Don't come off as arrogant and that
Because
you're
people
the
will
best
really
at
be inclined to judge your mission harshly.
But instead, just be proud of what you've done and be loud about it. The internet and the forums and Twitter and everything, it gives you a chance to be loud about it with words on a screen rather than having to be like a bombastic person if you're not naturally. Use that to your advantage and make people hear about your mission.
Yeah, I know. I mean, I spammed my Twitter account when I published my mission, and I'm sure a few people got sick of me talking about it.
One of the things that I enjoyed doing when I first started getting into the Foundry was creating sort of supplemental material for my Foundry mission. I created this series of bios of each of the characters that I was introducing. I put them into Photoshop and made it look like a pad, a Star Trek pad, with their picture next to it and things like that. And I posted it in the mission post on Starbase UGC.
Oh, right on.
And I just, with the idea that, maybe this will get somebody interested.
Very cool.
And actually, I'm thinking about collecting all that for this relaunch of that series that I'm doing, and maybe making a website about it with a trailer, with banners, with information on all the characters, the settings, that sort of thing. Web page building is something I haven't done in a long, long time, so I don't know if I'll really go ahead with that, but it's something I'm thinking about.
Well, guys, I have got to be heading out my door, and I look forward to hearing whatever other topics you talk about after I leave. Sorry that I have to disconnect, guys.
Just remember one thing.
What's that?
Mawage.
All right, guys, have a good one.
All right, we'll see you, Hippie.
Take care.
All right, Markhawkman, do you have a topic for us tonight?
I think we kind of already went over what I was thinking about talking about. Yeah, because I was actually going to talk a little bit about actually, there's one thing that didn't get brought up earlier. That one thing that I noticed with KDF missions is that with KDF you have a relatively limited number of starting doors compared to the Federation, which
that's true. Yeah,
gives you a lot more limitations than you would think at first, simply because of the fact that there's a whole lot of map sectors that the Federation gets doors to and KDF doesn't. But most of these map sectors are actually neutral territory, like Cardassian space or Romulan space.
Yeah.
And I mean, I can understand not putting KDF map doors inside Earth space dock. Okay, that makes a whole lot of sense because the KDF can't go there. But not putting one in, say, Beta Ursae, that doesn't make as much sense.
Now is Deep Space Nine hooked up for KDF on the Foundry? Like the doors on Deep Space Nine itself?
The inside of Deep Space Nine, I believe, yes. I remember I have done some missions on Tribble that had a starting door inside Deep Space Nine. I haven't checked recently exactly how many are available for the galactic map, but that's one thing that I remember from tinkering with things earlier, is that KDF doesn't have as many places to start missions from. That was something that would be nice to
It's true, it does handicap it a little bit. Plus, it's also a little. It takes more time to get around as a KDF player because you have to go around the Sirius sector lock. So going from Kronos to Deep Space Nine takes a lot more time than going from Earth to Deep Space Nine.
Yeah, because they have to go through the Deferi sector, right?
Yeah.
Well, unless you have the raiding party ability, which
I don't,
my character
personally
does have.
And that kind of brings up something that I've been thinking about is if the May update includes a Romulan faction, and that's still a big if at this point. Will it be hooked up for the Foundry functionality from the get-go? Will there be Foundry doors? Can you set a mission for that faction? I hope so too. I really hope so because I would love to build for Romulan faction.
I look forward to that.
I'm just wondering how, if in reality they've been able to create content.
They would have had to be
That's
working
the biggest
on it for a
thing
long time.
in the back of my mind. Wondering, Yeah, they had been working on it for a long time because the way the Klingon faction is, like you said, the lack of content. In order to make a whole other faction like the Romulan, you would have to have a lot of content to make it, playable.
Or do something. Well, you're going to have a lot of content any way you do it, but you do it with something like a boosted level that you start at, like the KDF is now.
Yeah, like when they bumped to Commander, correct.
Several times, as this has been discussed on the forum, is that we know that the devs have been planning something along those lines for quite some time. We don't know when they actually started working on it.
This is true. Because I remember discussions of playable Romulans back for years back.
Oh, yeah.
Before Freedom. Yeah. Before Perfect World. So, I mean, it's possible that, there's could have been content in development even way back then. Who knows?
Pretty good possibility.
I'd be very surprised if it's actually a Romulan playable faction.
Well, Dan
Trying not to expect anything at this point.
Dan Stoll has stated several times that he is interested in adding more factions, and I guess you could say planning on. But one thing that he's never even hinted at is when. So, but another thing is that he has on several occasions recently actually posted in the threads where people were speculating that it's a Romulan faction, and gave rather cryptic hints as to what storyline they will be developing in May.
Yeah,
but
I've seen him posting in those the Sela speculation thread.
He never said
in the morning.
That they aren't, which kind of strikes me as odd, simply because of the sheer number of threads people have made on the forum about it.
An endless number of threads. Where are we in that countdown? How many days do we have left?
Like 7.
A week or so?
8, yeah.
A week from Thursday.
I kind of suspect that will be an announcement of some kind of details.
That's what I'm expecting, too.
Yeah.
Because obviously it's
it's not going to be an actual content.
I'm not one of those terribly impatient people for these sorts of things, so I'm content to wait another 7 days.
But I think in 7 days we'll know what the May release is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's
be cool.
I think that's one.
But as I said, I hope that, if they do a Romulan faction, if they do any other faction for that matter, that it's hooked up to where you can start making Foundry missions for them from day one.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I'd love to do that.
Because, I already make Foundry missions about Romulans. I want to make them for Romulans.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, one thing that someone mentioned on the forums a while back is that the way that factions are currently coded into the game, at a certain level, the game does not distinguish between Federation and GDF players. Because it's a code tag that's a racial ability that determines whether or not a character is Federation or KDF, rather than the game actually characterize, or rather than the game actually having a distinct division between the two. And one thing that Stoll mentioned is that they're planning on rewriting the character creator, which kind of makes me wonder if they might be changing the way the game handles factions entirely in the near.
It's just going to be a visual change to try and ease
an interface
new players in.
And I wonder, if there's a more substantive change to the character creator, if any of that will make it into the foundry. But I suspect it's just a UI.
I don't think anything on the back end is going to change.
I suspect it's just a UI thing.
I think it's mostly going to be making better presets.
But again, it's all wait and see at this point.
Yeah, it's all pure speculation.
Yeah. Well, Duke, do you have any interesting discussion topics for us?
Nothing more than what we were talking about. I think the advertising, missions is from that aspect. It's not really that difficult to get involved with Starbase UGC like a lot of us started out that way, on getting our missions on there, hanging out in the chat room, meeting some of the other folks. And, the missions go out via friends and talking and back and forth on the chat room and so forth, and that, eventually even making yourself up little ads and everything. I'm not a computer whiz. I can't make the real fancy ads like say Alimac makes on his missions. We actually printed out some of his ads and brought them out to Vegas because he was at Vegas, and I gave him a couple little posters of them. But I just use paint and screenshots and build little ads. I do them with my reviews. And, it's really not that difficult to make things like that for yourself in your signature on the forums, for example. Everybody has the their little signatures. Some of them have missions, others, have other things like that. But I mean, along that line, advertising your mission, I think definitely get it ready. Like you were saying, first of all, make sure you're ready to have it where you want to go out there and say, hey, it's here, play it. You definitely don't want to just throw it out there. I mean, I learned my first mission I ever made was it was my first mission, but it was pretty bad.
Well, the Foundry was pretty bad back then.
Well, yeah.
Yeah, and I learned, and I basically killed it and expanded part 2 into making it the whole first part. But I mean, from an advertising standpoint, get it ready and make a little ad, put a little thing in your signature, ask somebody to do a review on it. But like you guys were harping on, make sure it's ready. Make sure you don't have a lot of the dumb spelling mistakes or the bad grammar or the punctuations and just things that don't make sense.
Yeah.
So when
get ready to a point where your first reviews are going to be pretty good.
Yeah, exactly. Or at least it flows smoothly, from the mission standpoint.
I have actually made that kind of mistake in the past. One of the things I did in Space Empire 5 modding was to create this mod called Minesweeper, which expanded greatly on the way the game handled mines and how you use them in the game. The catch, I spent however many hours working on writing the data files, but I didn't even attempt to load it before I did my initial release. And of course, after I released it, I realized that I screwed something up badly enough that the mod simply wouldn't load.
Okay.
Oh yeah, there's been a lot of professional games mods and Foundry missions that have gotten a lot of negative comments because they were released before they were ready.
Yeah.
Well, I remember one thing someone did about the worst released glitches or worst glitches in officially released games. I don't remember what the name of the game was. It was some sort of like semi-post-apocalyptic game in a kind of like a Western setting. I don't remember exactly what the name was, but the glitch in this game was that on a certain level, the game engine treated people and animals as two different types of the same object. And it would occasionally get confused as to how they were supposed to look. And it would use the appearance of a person on something that was actually a bird. And sometimes it would mix and match
That's great.
of different people and different animals together.
Well, of course, my favorite one from Stowe was where you'd beam up to space and you'd still be your person, but you'd be flying around where your ship should be. You beam down to the planet and your ship would be there where your person was supposed to be.
I remember that bug.
And actually, somehow I did in the Foundry, where I still to this day have no idea how I did it. I only did it once, was never able to replicate it, where I actually had in preview mode, beamed up or beamed down or something, and it ended up with my ship flying around on a ground map, but actually flying and behaving as it would in space.
Well, I have on a few occasions had my Foundry character beam up, and when she was inside her ship, I would see that I had several party members following along, which were ground characters who were just kind of like floating helplessly in space.
Well, as playing Star Trek Online, we should all be no stranger to bugs.
Oh, yeah.
Playing
Especially
MMOs in general.
Yeah, MMOs in general. I haven't found a bug-free one yet. So
Actually,
I don't know.
I've never found a single bug-free computer or video game ever.
This is true.
Well, as soon as we can stop having to have humans write software.
Yeah, but when the
well,
computers
well,
are writing their own software, that's when the apocalypse happens.
Or the Matrix.
First, their software gets written by humans, so there are bound to be bugs in that, which will probably introduce bugs into whatever the computers write.
And then Skynet happens.
Yes. Judgment Day.
Yeah, but knowing the way real-world computer glitches work, you might end up with one of Skynet's servers going rogue and deciding to wipe out the rest of Skynet.
Skynet ally.
Yep. Well, guys, I think that'll do it for tonight. So, on that bombshell, it's time to end. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night.
All right. Thanks for having me, guys. Enjoyed it.
Great to have you.
Great to have you.
Yep.